Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Best Last Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. We are talking Season 1, Episode 11, Survivors. Today, I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Joining me, as always, in the CNC is Lou.
Hello, everyone. Happy days.
Yes, and the podcast mom, Karen.
Hello, everybody.
So yesterday I went and saw the new Elvis movie and was very impressed with it. And today I am talking to two of my best friends about a land far away so that we don't have to think about what's going on in the U.S. right now.
Damn straight.
Though there is an element of this episode that touches upon that.
It does. And as one of our frequent contributors, Alexander, said, he really has appreciated the way that we have not let it overtake our conversation, but we've not stayed away from it.
Right.
And I appreciate that. That's what we're trying to do. We realize that this is not a political podcast, but there is often things that come up because of the way JMS wanted to write. I'll go first this one. I think this one was an okay episode. It tended to be more of one of those standalone episodes that did not have, it's a one and done story. So I think if I judge it as just a one and done story, it was decent, but as starring as a piece of the overall arc, it was like, So Lou, what's your quick thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. This episode had a lot of great promise, but the execution was subpar. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper because I was going to mention that last episode that when we got together that, I feel like it's time for a Garibaldi episode. He hasn't really been featured in anything. And then when we got it, I got, oh, great. This is exactly what I wanted. But then it just didn't deliver. And that was very disappointing because I don't know how many Garibaldi focused episodes we're going to get. And this was such a major backstory reveal. And I just thought it was just a very bad, or it's a prime example of you should show instead of tell, because basically he just monologued his backstory. And I was like, really? That's how you're going to handle this? I was very disappointed with that.
Yeah. Karen?
Same Z's. The only thing I really appreciated was getting more of Garibaldi's story. And like you guys said, it wasn't done really well. I hated Kemmer. I just not a fan at all, except for I liked her hair. But yeah, there wasn't a lot to like in this episode. You don't really sympathize with anyone. You don't really hate anyone. I don't know. It was just a meh episode for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess this was one of the Mark Scott Zekri was written this. So he has written for Sliders. He's written a Deep Space Nine episode.
An Emmy-winning Deep Space Nine episode.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, very nice.
That was the one. What's the character's name? The leader of the ship, the station. He goes back in time. Cisco. He goes back in time. So episodes far beyond the star. So he goes back to the 50s as a reporter, writer. So very good episode. Mark Zicree, he's got quite a good history with a lot of the creative forces I grew up with. He was a friend of Rod Serling, so he writes the Twilight Zone companion books, and he updates that. He's done a lot of the commentaries on the disc sets for the original Twilight Zone series, and he's currently on YouTube under the label of Sci-Fi Guy. He's got a web series that he's running, Space Command, and he's been trying to get that going on a network, but up to this point it's been most Patreon fueled. So he's got quite the storied history. He knows a lot of people from the science fiction community, creative community. So it was interesting when I saw his name on the credits. I thought, okay, this should be interesting. But if you want to find him,
I've never watched Space Command. Is it decent?
Well, you can only see it on the web, right? So
And I saw Mira Furlan. Actually, I'm looking on IMDb. She played on some of the 5 episodes. So I have not heard of this. So I will have to kind of check it out on web.
While you look, he wrote the episode entitled Far Beyond the Stars on Deep Space Nine.
Right.
He also wrote a really good episode of TNG, First Contact.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he did a lot of Sliders. I mean, a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think he was a showrunner on Sliders too. But Mr. Sci-Fi, my bad.
Mr. Sci-Fi.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll have to check that out. Very nice. He going all the way back to an Incredible Hulk episode and
the Smurfs.
Yeah. So wow, a very, very thing. And I know that
He-Man.
Yeah, one of the things that JMS talks about is he really likes having the different voices, but also because they're different voices, they don't always know exactly what the character should sound like. I know one of my favorite stories, and once again, you always have to be careful with all the things going on, but I remember in a commentary, some writer on Buffy had done a script, and when they started looking, they went, oh, Xander doesn't have a lot of lines, so I'm going to take this line that originally was for this character and I'm going to give it to Xander. And when Josh read the script, he went, this doesn't sound like a Xander line. It sounds more like a Cordia line. And the writer was like, damn, okay. So good. All right. So it's a pretty basic story. I guess you weaved in, once again, we don't even have the pretendance of a B plot this time. Everything is all about the president is coming to visit Babylon 5. He's bringing them a new fighter wing. So some new
X-Wings.
Yeah, basically, yes. Some new fighter jets that Ivanova is saying we've been needing these forever. There was a nice little beginning when Claudia, Christian, and Ivanova and Garibaldi sit there and have a nice dialogue back and forth, kind of setting things up. Once again, with Yulu telling instead of showing. And so there's an explosion. And at first they think it's an accident, and then they start suspecting it may be sabotage. And the person who was working on that actually led to the accident is on his deathbed, forced to confess, and he mentions Garibaldi's name. So I don't really know. I think let's just kind of do a general roundstorm about the story. I thought it was an interesting plot that there's sabotage. They're trying to blow this up, and no one wants to believe that. Very few people are believing that Garibaldi is innocent, or they don't want to risk their skin the same way in last episode, Believers, they don't want to get involved. So Karen, let's start with you. Any thoughts on just overall any part of the story?
I think there were a lot of plot holes in this episode, which is part of what my issue was. Like, did they want to kill the president, or did they want to just blow up the base so they couldn't get more fighters?
Yeah.
And I understand they talked about it in the episode, but to me, I was wondering that sort of thing. Why did he say Garibaldi's name?
Mm-hmm.
Did he have all that history? I mean, who would have all that history about him losing his mentor? And I just didn't understand it. Why is the president going to Babylon 5? Now, I hope that we get more of the president in future episodes, because I find that that's interesting. But this is like way out in the far reaches of the galaxy. So, I mean, is there a reason for him to personally go there and make a speech when he could just be on a Jumbotron or something?
So I figured this is similar to a U.S. president doing stopping at a base, or a military base, or something, like when he's doing visiting like a conference or something. I think the TV show, in the script, they talk about how much he really supports Babylon 5's work. And so maybe this was an excuse of he told his people, hey, let's go visit this.
Right. They have telepaths there.
Yeah.
they couldn't be useful in this case, maybe?
That's it. We don't even get discussed on that, right?
Right. There was no discussion of, hey, maybe we could hire her to find out what Garibaldi's motives are. And, I understand that they don't want to cross that line. And I'm talking about in the fake world, but this is extenuating. The head of security is accused of this horrible thing. Might be time to maybe relax those boundaries a little bit and, try and get some motivation. But that was my big nit, was that it just didn't really work. There were many other things that I thought should have been done.
Yeah. And Karen, I wonder if one of the things is, did they not want the telepaths to be the sonic screwdriver, the magic spell of, anytime we run into problems, we'll just use a telepath to use this.
Sure.
But you do wonder why they didn't involve that. Now, in my mind, I would answer it that the head of the president's Secret Service, basically, I get the feeling that that's similar to what this is, right? That she is the Secret Service. I think they called it something else, but the presidential security detail. I don't think she went in there, Major Kimmer, going immediately. She did not assume immediately he was guilty, but once she got that clue, all her baggage came in and okay, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found that she was just unlikable. And I understand we're not really supposed to like her.
And worse, she was not believable.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Share a little more of that, Lou.
Yeah.
Well, she's the head of the president's security detail, and she's like, what? She looks like she's 25.
She does look young. I thought the same thing.
So I didn't buy that, and no shade on the actor, but she just didn't have any range to handle the backstory that supposedly her and Garibaldi were supposed to be sharing. You could say she was hiding behind her position and being professional and whatnot, but I mean, a real good actor still brings out the corner of their eyes or something in their eyes. They make you realize that there's more that's going on there. I mean, the textbook cases, Leonard Nimoy as Spock, he was supposed to be not emotional, but everything that you looked at him, there was always open texture there that you could feel that there was something more than going on behind the mask. Whereas with her, she was just
flat.
She had no inner life.
Yeah.
She had no inner life. She was just like reciting lines. So as I mentioned off the top, I love the idea of this backstory for Garibaldi, but I'm assuming that budget restrictions or whatnot, and because Garibaldi's not the star, like if this was Sinclair, I'm sure they would have spent more money. Sinclair got some flashback scenes in his space fighter, but here, the only flashback we got is one of the Kimmer as a girl supposedly looking down at Garibaldi.
Right.
But that was it. So because I didn't buy her in that role, it made me very difficult to get into the episode. And then they did some silly things, like her hair was, I guess, in regulation style throughout the episode. And then at the end, it's all nice and loose and flowing. And I'm going, my God, this is like original Star Trek soft light on the female guest star kind of stuff. Yeah. So I didn't buy that. She has nice hair though. I'll say that for her. That was probably her best feature.
I didn't like the flowy part. I thought that was really hokey that she lets her hair down at the end. It was just stupid that they used her hair to symbolize she's all buttoned up and then now she's open. Lame.
Yeah. And her uniform seemed too big for her too. I don't know. This episode just felt like one where they really could have used another polish on the script, and it just felt like they were trying to save budget on this one, or the money went to all the space scenes that they shot, because there were quite a few of them actually. And I did like the design of the president's ship. I thought that was pretty cool. That's one thing I'll say about Babylon 5. The spaceship designs are quite unique, and I'm always appreciative of the various different configurations and so forth and apparent methods of propulsion that each of these vessels has. So that was interesting for me. But of course, they're not state of the art, any stretch of the imagination kind of special effects, and especially like the one worker that got killed flying out into space and didn't look very convincing either. So, but yeah, this episode just was really frustrating for me, because I really wanted this Garibaldi backstory to be impactful, and it just came out really flat because of the execution. And there was some bad filler too, like when he was that whole scene when he's fighting, I mean, I'm sure the actor had a ball playing that stuff out, but that when he's fighting those three thugs and Sinclair just happens to show up and then Sinclair just happens to let him go, and it's just like and that moment when Garibaldi takes a drink again, that should have been a big moment, but it just didn't land. So the more I'm talking about this, the more frustrated I'm getting.
Do you think they paid off him ending his sobriety easy enough? In other words, did it seem like he went to that bottle a little too soon, or did you buy that because of everything going on, he may have drank again?
I think it was enough baggage for him to turn back to the bottle, especially since he was reminded of it. It didn't have that impact.
It just seemed odd that he would choose to do that at that moment, because he was on a mission to clear himself. Why would he all of a sudden stop like that? That just and it kind of makes me question. I know Babylon 5 is supposed to be a big space station, but there's really all these hidden nooks and crannies where they have like these under the radar kind of bars, or they the decision has been made unofficially not to clamp down on these kind of establishments and let them operate as a safety valve for people or something. I don't know, but like how many nooks and crannies are in this space station where we're going to find these seedy establishments? I don't know.
And I think the beauty of that is they are it's so big, right? The space station is so big, you can have that stuff. I don't know. I did notice on IMDb, I did not see it, but IMDb mentioned that Zima is listed in the bar and one of the signs. And at the time they thought, oh, what's a beverage that will still be around? And Zima did not make,
I've never heard of it.
It came back. Yeah.
It's not good.
Okay. No, it's not good at all. Yeah.
All right.
How about you, Karen? Garibaldi falling off the wagon.
Yeah. Again, it didn't have that punch, I think, that it could have had. He was down.
Yeah.
I have to admit that everything was working against him and it looked bad for him. The fact that he could move around pretty easily. I mean, I do know that it's a big space station, but the one time they catch him down the hallway, he's wearing a face mask. That's the one time they catch him. They look at him and go, oh, it's Garibaldi. How on earth do you know that's Garibaldi?
Yeah.
He walks by them in an earlier scene and just manages to hide behind something. He doesn't have a face mask on or anything. I don't know. And he just throws the face mask down as he leaves too, which, I mean, there's only two. So remember how we had a nit that there were only two face masks?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So just a lot of stuff that was just not done well. I gotta say, Sinclair may have been the best actor in this whole episode.
Oh, that's funny.
Because he was the only one that seemed to be acting in character. Even Ivanova had some issues,
She was very hands-off in this episode, which I found disappointing, because they showed them talking together, her and Garibaldi, but the rest of the episode she just stood back and let things happen. I thought she would take a more active part.
Exactly.
I agree with you guys to talk about it. Seems like this could have used a really nice reworking, and it's easy for us to Monday morning quarterbacking.
Of course.
Yes, but I agree. You're like, oh yeah, so Susan either would have been interesting if she had been, well, I've never trusted him anyway. And so therefore she's quick to jump on that to take some of the role away from the colonel or the major, right? And then the other part is, or the other way, like, no, I believe in this guy and I'm right there with you, Commander, let's go through this. I did have a confusion of, I guess because the commander of the space station outranks a major, I was thinking what in the hierarchy, because she salutes him but then, and I do like that Susan does buy him some time by doing the diagnostics.
Right.
And, and then she's like, so you wonder how does, because of the space station's chain of command, how does this head of security, so it appears that it may be separate military organizations, right? Like the Secret Service may not be in the chain of command of a police officer, the local police, but they can oversee. It was a little bit murky, but I did love the Susan of, you can request. Okay, I'll request. Request denied, you know?
Yeah, that was, that kind of stuff was good.
I just wish her and Garibaldi had a scene at the end of the episode to bookend the beginning. That would have been good too.
Yeah, I think that would have been nice. Yeah.
And we got our praying mantis, which is never a plus.
No, it's not.
But I will say the highlight of the episode was for me was the two scenes with Garibaldi with Londo and Jakar, because it really showed the difference between those two characters. I'm really starting to like Londo. I realize now that he's puts on quite a mask himself, but underneath it, he kind of reminds me of Lando from Star Wars. He's a bit of a scoundrel, right? Whereas Jakar, he's just a Ferengi. You know, everything's he's just plotting and moving.
Everything's a transaction for him.
And I'm noticing too, in these kind of murky, down and gritty episodes, the Minbari are usually excluded. So they're usually only in the episodes where it's more about loftier ideals and that. So I don't know if that's just a convenience of storytelling again, or the Minbari just would not be involved in this kind of subterfuge at all. I don't know. But so I'm liking how the series is slowly fleshing out these other main alien races, even because they basically just come in for one or two scenes so far per episode, unless it's an episode featuring them. But I'm really starting to like Londo quite a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And I love the way that the accent that the actor chooses to do, right? I remember in an article once, he said that he was often mocked that he has a bad accent when he's playing a role. And so he loved that no one can tell me that a Centauri accent is inaccurate, because there is no Centauri accent, so I can do whatever I want.
Right.
But I love that. Mr. Garibaldi, do you really think that I would do such a thing to you, my good and dear friend? In a minute, you're right, but I didn't, you know, just, and I did love, I agree with you, because just like in Believers, where the parents went to each little ambassador, I'm thinking that Londo and Jakar are the two ambassadors that Michael did the most interaction with. So probably he doesn't do much with Delenn, doesn't do much with Kosh, but those two, he seems to have, if not a friendship, at least a connection. And so I think that's why he went to them. And of course, it's hilarious that Londo, at any chance, if he can make Jakar and his people look bad, absolutely. And the
done
same
and done.
thing.
Right.
Yeah, and if Jakar can make the Centauri look bad, they do it. So this is England and Ireland. They do not like each other. Yeah.
I get the feeling that, do you know how, like in old timey Westerns and stuff, you have the drunk that is that nemesis of the sheriff, but also the sheriff puts up with him, you know, that kind of thing. He's in jail, but the door's always open.
Yeah. Yes. I get that.
Like in Midnight Mass, almost the town drunk.
Yes.
I feel like that's the relationship he has with those two that have turned into and I'm going to put air quotes around friendship with them, because they're so problematic for security. That's why they've turned into this friendship. And I think the other races aren't as problematic, and that's why he just doesn't have as much interaction. Of course, the Minbari wouldn't have anything to do with this. I mean, why would anyone even implicate them? Because that would be unbelievable. But if you implicate the other races, it's easy to fall into believing that.
Yeah.
So
what are the notes and you know, we always are going to bring out Lurker's Guide, because I think it's a valuable resource, whether you are watching these episodes for the first time, watching them on a rewatch. Always urge people not to go there until after they've seen the episode, because it is very spoiler free. But one of the questions the people who did Lurkers was that why would not Susan immediately, if Garibaldi told her to stop, would she not do that immediately? I thought that was actually realistic because she's like, who are you? Where are you calling from? What's going on? I don't know if there is that blind faith I don't know if I have that blind faith with anyone currently in my life, that they called me and they said, stop what you're doing immediately, without me going, what's going on? Right. So thoughts on that, Karen?
Yeah, I agree with that. And while they are friendly, I feel like they still have a bit of tension. Yeah. However, there was already an explosion in one of the bays.
Yeah.
So in order for her to say, okay, stop the countdown, it wouldn't have been any skin off her nose. It might have delayed things.
Yeah.
If there wasn't a bomb there, what issue would there have been with her stopping the countdown? Hold on, we might have an issue. Let's look into it. That would have been protective of the president. So she should have just immediately said, okay, fine, stop the countdown. Okay, now why?
Mm-hmm.
It should have been the other way around. Don't ask why right now. Just stop the countdown. There could be something wrong.
Yeah.
She should have, her first thought should have been for the president and the new fleet and all that stuff. So
exactly.
I understand the motivational side of it, why she would not just take his word for it right away. But there should have been, in this particular case, a rush to stop the countdown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is just a microcosm example of story driving plot instead of character driving story, because she would have erred, this is the president of Earth. She would have erred on the side of caution, no matter how, whatever. And I just took it as a TV trope to create false tension or drama, because they had to get that countdown to T-1 so that it was just done in the nick of time, which is such a trope that,
that Galaxy Quest made fun of it.
Yeah, I didn't buy her behavior there at all.
Oh man, Galaxy Quest, so good.
Great, that great thing on Galaxy Quest, right? That, because So I agree with that. So once again, right, we've got this overarching, there is maybe something working in this world of the universe, Babylon 5 Earth government, that there is a version of Proud Boys or
Deep State.
Nazis.
That there is a Republican Party. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
That
Jesse.
Yes. Bad Jesse.
Home Guard.
The Home Guard, right? That they are, they seem to be the worst of, and I'm going to do the extreme left, the extreme right, the extreme
middle.
The extreme middle. They are, it feels like they are building that there's something rotten in Denmark, right? Mm-hmm. And I do like that they have sown that seeds, right? That this is what's going on. And you can imagine Babylon 5 is so far away from the action, yet the repercussions of what's going on Earth is affecting them. So any thoughts on that we determine that's what this guy was about? We don't really know why he was doing this, as you said, but this was it was a potential act of terrorism. Yeah.
I like that it's building up the universe, because we've had references to the Home Guard before.
Mm-hmm. Homeboys,
sorry.
Jesse's
got me going now. Yeah. So I do like that, and I'm sure that's this laying groundwork for something that's going to happen down the road. I wish that we had actually met the president to take it on a different tack, and I hope that's going to happen down the road. But all that buildup, and we never actually got to see it. It's kind of like, what?
and I wonder if they were saving that card, that we didn't want to cast someone for what would be like a 3-minute role, and then later, if we need the president, we have to get that same actor back.
Have we not seen him already on that TV screen when there was the election happening?
I don't.
Or was
think
that a
so.
different guy?
Yeah, I don't think so.
But maybe there's an actor they have in mind, but they couldn't get him for this episode. I don't know. Maybe that's why they threw in that fight scene, because that was just filler.
I thought the same thing. And I tend to, like, when I'm watching, especially animated episodes, at times I will go, okay, fine. We've got Batman fighting the bad guys, or there's explosions everywhere. And I'm like, okay, let's just move past this to what my story I want to watch. Yeah. And I realized that there are people who love, and I love, I mean, yesterday, one of the previews before the Elvis movie was the new Mission Impossible film that's coming out next summer. Right. And Linda looked over at me and goes, how old is Tom Cruise now? I said, I believe 62. She goes, he looks the same.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes. And Mission Impossible films, I love them. They are popcorn summer, but yeah, all the explosion, the actions, that's what a lot of people go for, the stunts. But it's always me. Like, I would love a Kevin Smith Superman movie, because Kevin Smith, but the problem there would just be the heroes sitting around drinking coffee and talking, right? And sign me up. I'm in
going out for dinner or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Shawarma.
I have to say, shawarma. Yeah, I have to say that the fight scenes in this were just terrible. They were not choreographed very well. I did like the Garibaldi's like, okay, come on. I'm in. Yeah. Let me fight you guys. I mean, that was very Garibaldi.
Yes. But it almost.
And you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it almost felt like those police squad scenes where you'd have the guy shooting on either side of the crates at each other. You know what I mean? Yes. Like he's standing there, okay, and there's three guys and they're so close to him. And I was just like, oh my God. And I mean, this is like 30 years after Star Trek. And the fight scenes in that show are like still better than this.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know the production history too well of this series, but I definitely feel like they were working under pretty stringent budget and time frames, and this episode showed it.
Sure. And I understand that for like heavy CGI stuff, but for fight scenes, they should get those.
And we're spoiled today too, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at a show like Daredevil on Netflix where they did a one shot down the hallway. Yeah. And that's just a fight scene down the hallway. They didn't use special effects. They didn't, So I understand that, but I do think they could have done a better job choreographing that.
Yeah. And if you get an emotional element, I mean, in there as well, because like as flashy as the say like lightsaber duel in Phantom Menace is with Darth Maul and the two Jedis, though I never found that a fair fight. Two Jedis on one Sith, but that's another issue. But the fight scenes with Luke and Vader are much more engaging because there's emotional buy-in or hooks into those fights, whereas the other one's just more like a gymnastics display. Luke Vader fight, this is good versus evil, father versus son, the light versus dark, all these things are going on, and I find those kind of fights much more engrossing than like you mentioned, the Mission Impossible stuff, Jesse, but that's action sequences at the top of what money can buy thing. So then the scale of it just, you're like, wow. But afterwards, it's kind of like, okay, that was cool, but it was like a roller coaster. Whereas if you're engaged in a fight, you come away, you actually you feel different. You feel like you either lost or gained something, and it's more than just a thrill ride.
Yeah, like compare any of those fights from action movies that you like. You go to see them and you think, wow, the action was really good in that. Compare it to Luke and Darth Vader on the scaffolding. You remember that fight, that dialogue. I mean, I could almost picture every piece of that fight because of how meaningful it is. And then if I go back to an action movie I like, I can't. I just remember fighting.
Yeah.
Because it's just not impactful. And this is getting way off the topic. But you know what I mean.
No. Yep. And one of the things that I was expecting, I like that Leanna and Michael had a moment at the end, right, where he says, we died 17 years ago, but we have to get past it. And she says, I'll see you next time the president visits. He's fond of Babylon 5. And she says, make sure nothing happens to him. We need all the friends we can get. And she says, goodbye, Michael. And they hug. I wanted her to say, goodbye, Uncle Michael.
Yeah.
I know that's just a small thing, but I think that would have given us a button to, she felt like he was an uncle. They were just estranged. And now then this, I appreciate them hugging, but I think that extra word would have made it more emotionally satisfying to me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, back, she's a little kid again and sending her love to that. Minor nitpick, but our thoughts.
And I would love to see an episode with Garibaldi and Sinclair's backstory, because Garibaldi said that he's lost every job that he's had because of his drinking problem. So what did Sinclair see in this guy that made him become friends with him and give him this job in Babylon 5? Like, there must be a really interesting story there. And I don't know if we'll see it. I have a feeling we won't, but because that's not where the show is focused. But, you know, next to Sinclair, Garibaldi's the main face of the show to me. And so far he's been underserved. And we're 11 episodes in. That's sad, really.
Yeah. So they did a comic book series of Babylon 5, and I'm looking at Lurker's Guide. And so there was a comic that told that backstory that was considered canon. So I will have to see if I can find that comic somewhere and then try to release
that answers my question as to whether or not the show is going to address it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Too bad.
Yeah. No, they won't.
Can you say, Jesse, without spoiling, with Garibaldi is explored more going forward, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He has some major arcs that are, I think, very, very interesting. I think you'll be happy. Absolutely. Anything else we want to talk about?
They're saying here that the Narn attack on Ragesh 3 from Midnight on the Firing Line is briefly alluded to by Lando and Jakar. I don't really know what that reference was. It's not jumping out at me. And apparently the communicators, or the links that they have, they're supposed to be individualized and cannot be used by someone else other than the owner. So that's interesting.
Right.
And because, it's just like, I still find it hard to believe that they couldn't find Garibaldi. I mean, I don't have the scale of the station down, but it can't be that easy to hide like he was. And he was, like, they've got cameras, and so that maybe this is this 90s thinking, because it's almost pretty hard to look at what's happening today. Again, bringing it back today, people are doing stuff and they're either blatantly or stupidly allowing themselves to be electronically captured and recorded. Like it's exactly. It's really hard to swallow that aspect of the episode, that they weren't able to track him down. But that's, that predates what's happening.
Until his face was hidden, and then they found him.
Yeah.
So I have to say, this is one of the few times I've talked about an episode where my opinion has gone down. And usually it's either stays where it is or it goes up a little bit. But this one, it's actually gone down. So that's also kind of sad. But that happens occasionally.
Yeah. So, and I know, I think we've talked about this before, and this is not spoilery. I believe starting in season 2 all the way through the end of season 4, I know it's at least season 3, JMS writes every episode starting in the second season. And in fact, he makes the joke, that's why he turned gray. I mean, there's a picture of him before and after. Because the series becomes much more intricate in the second season, where it truly is a novel for television, you get very few standalone episodes like this. So
okay. So it's more serialized?
Yes, much more.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, I use this example often when I had never watched Supernatural. And when our mutual friend Wendy from Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV said, "Oh, you've got to watch this show, Jesse. Here are the 6 episodes you should watch in season 1, then go straight to season 2." And so I think this would be one of those where if you were giving someone who had a short time, like, you could say, you can skip this one. The only thing you know is Michael is an alcoholic. He slips in and he gets back.
Right.
So
there's a lot of series like that. Fringe and Farscape, most of the first season standalone stuff. It's not until they kick into the serialized stuff that I found them interesting. So
not just them. I mean, TNG had some real clunkers that first season.
Yeah.
I mean, the pilot itself, Escape, Farpoint, the Farpoint Station one. Ugh, terrible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you were going to drop a series because of the first season,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have watched a million shows that now I love. So I'm going to hand wave this one because I do think the series is very rich with ideas, and there's lots of things they can mine. I just feel like this was a misstep.
Well, and I know I don't want to put words in y'all's mouth, so please comment on this, but there were 3 or 4 episodes ago where you guys said this was the first time where I went, oh, I want to go to the next one. Oh, and this one, I watched it last night and I went, well, it was an episode. There you go.
Yep.
It was an episode, an episode period.
But it was a frustrating episode.
Right. And there was a part of me that wanted to go on to the next one because I wanted to like something.
Yes, exactly. There you
go. So, it's like people say with Howard Stern, I don't like him, so I want to listen, or I do like him, so I want to listen. It's that kind of thing where I wanted to go on to the next one because I wanted to like something, but also when I like an episode, I want to go on to the next one. So.
All right. All right. Ratings. Lou, you want to give first?
I was kind of coming into this with a 7, but I think after talking to you guys, I'm going to knock it down a half a point, and I'm going to give it 6.5 Centauri ducats.
Okay, good. Karen?
I feel bad. I'm lower than that. I was going to give it a 5, which is, I mean, that's a middling grade, which is, not the worst thing ever, but it's also not good. So 5 praying mantises.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to give this 6 toilet full of snakes.
There you go.
Wow, I'm the highest.
Yeah, this was one that, as we said, it was just an episode. So I'm excited to go on to the next one. We're getting through, I guess this is about halfway through the first season, right? We're reaching.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, because I believe 22 is the first episode, 22 the first season. So yeah. Karen, did we get some feedback?
We did. Did we get any from Holly?
We did, and I will read Holly's and you could read Alexander's. How you do it? How's that sound?
That sounds great. So Alexander, he says, this time I'll do it in one email. He talks about both last week's episode and this week's.
Oh, good.
So I didn't read the second half of this until I watched the episode.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I can't read it. Your discussion of Believers was fantastic. One of the best things about watching newcomers discuss the show is how we slowly get to understand your outlook on the topics this show tackles. Because many themes, topics, and even plot elements in Babylon 5's long-term storytelling return and are expanded upon in the future, this creates a lot of anticipation. Following your comments on Believers, I am now all the more excited to see how you'll view future stories in the show. As part of this discussion, you brought up some great general questions too. How do we define science fiction, and when is something not science fiction enough? I really loved your take of it as something which challenges our understanding of the world. Sometimes I struggle with this myself. When I think of sci-fi, I want to see spaceships and alien planets and weird cultures, but it's important to remember that this is by no means the sole definition, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And now on to Survivors. As for the episode, I'm very curious to hear what you'll say about the plot. Well, now you know.
Yeah.
It was a plot, period. Personally, I have to say I'm not the biggest fan. I think once a bomb is planted on the station, we should have had a bit more focus on the topic of domestic terrorism rather than it just being a plot beat to a character exploration of Garibaldi. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, that is really well done.
Yeah, it just seemed a bit too big and extreme for that. And let's see, moving forward, watching this episode of Babylon 5, I get a very similar sense of versatility. The way Garibaldi describes his past on Europa, the way he interacts with Leanna Kemmer, it feels like there's an entire dreary noir movie in there, far removed from the colorful space opera of the station. There's a certain dissonance there, but in my opinion, Jerry Doyle does a fantastic job carrying the baggage of his character from that older noir story over to the station. When he sits at the bar and succumbs to his addiction, I absolutely buy it. It's a glimpse of a dark past we never got to really see up to this point. Moving forward, I think this is one of the strengths of the show. We see enough of the world around Babylon 5 to understand the universe is bigger than this station. The station is one place, a very special place with particular circumstances, but elsewhere, things can be very different. Great comments, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well done. I really am enjoying your feedback, Alexander, and I hope that we're going to be able to figure out a time when you can join us. So, because I'm looking forward to talking to you via Zoom, quote unquote, in person.
Right?
Yes. All right. So Holly Max says, "Hey all, can't believe that we're already at the halfway point in season 1. Oh, can already sense there's some backstory between Kimmer and Garibaldi. Good thing Sinclair can read between the lines when Garibaldi really doesn't want to talk about his past with Kimmer's father and how he died because someone he was going to take down wanting to take him out. Of course, someone is setting up Garibaldi again. I have a few theories. We'll wait and see how it plays out. Loved the scenes between Londo and Garibaldi. Of course, Home Guard would be behind this. The end conversation between Garibaldi and Lyanna was the right touch. All in all, a great episode. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin." Well, thank you, Holly. I am glad you enjoyed it more than us. It is always nice to hear from you. And thank you so much. Listeners, if you want to give us feedback, our email address is jklb5podcast@gmail.com. Please send us an email with your thoughts about each episode. We are taking off next weekend for the 4th of July weekend. I have family in town. And so my wife looked at me with a little bit of stern face, like, you are not going to make all of us sit in the bedroom while you record Sunday morning, are you? And I'm like, no, not at all. So
yeah, I just want to mention I got some feedback on the YouTube channel as well.
Oh, great.
So just a couple of comments. Marchechi says it's great that you highlighted JMS's early involvement with the message boards and forums back in the day, in a way making this podcast as a fantastic way to continue that part of the show's legacy.
Oh, nice.
So thank you very much for that. And then Simon Giles comments on Believers. He said why Sinclair kept Franklin around. They thought that Sinclair thinks it's more of a punishment for him to have to stay and live with his mistakes rather than run away. So,
oh, nice.
That's an interesting take. And as far as the pronunciation of Susanna's last name, Nathan says, and while it's both Ivanova and Avianova are wrong, it's Ivanova. The show's mistake is better than the traditional Anglicization of Ivan. So
nice.
So it's Ivanova. Let's keep that in mind. Ivanova.
Yes.
And I just want to say thanks to Mike Finney's there as well. And there's a couple other people. And Mike Bennett said, this is the most Trek-like episode of B5, and the ending alone distinguishes it from a typical Trek episode. So we're talking about Believers again. So thanks to all you guys. Keep those comments coming, and as Jesse and Karen are doing, keep the emails coming too.
All right, Lou, where can they reach you if they want to learn more about Stephen King and all the other stuff you're involved with? By the way, I just hit the halfway point on Under the Dome. I, for some reason, had never read the book. Okay. And I'm enjoying it. It's
don't watch the series.
Well,
you can watch the first season.
Yeah.
But beyond that, don't.
What there is a little bit of talking about, there is a little bit of current political feeling with them Under the Dome and Big Jim, right?
Yeah.
It is, I felt like, boy, this is a very timely novel. And I know it is written several years ago, but it is truly what's frustrating. And skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to hear, but you're like, what's sad is we're experiencing this as real life, not in an imaginary small town with a dome around them. Anyway, so Lou, where can they reach you?
Yes, you can find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where I have the Stephen King podcast episodes, the Writers podcast episode, and of course, Babylon 5. And hopefully in a week or two, I'll have the Midnight Mass episodes up for you as well. So, and on the internet, or Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzmo or the Stephen King podcast.
All right. And Karen?
I am at Aleveria, Aleveria. I ended up getting a couple more followers that had Babylon 5 in their bio. So I'm assuming they're from the podcast listeners. Great. So welcome aboard. And I hope you don't hate me too much there. I talk about a lot of random stuff that has nothing to do with science fiction. But anyway, that's where I am on Twitter, and there's a link in my bio to all my other stuff.
Very nice. Well, and I can be found at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me. I was a guest star on the Gold Standard podcast where we talked to ordinary people. So if you want to hear me talking about a mainstream movie, we enjoyed that with Zion and Nick and Rachel. So that was a lot of fun. You can hear me talk music on Set Listing Bruce, where both Karen and has joined me. And I haven't gotten Lou yet. We need to get Lou on that episode sometime.
Some more Canadian music.
Yes, we need to do that. Yeah. So
I didn't get a chance to drink anything. You didn't mention Springsteen in this podcast.
I know, man. What happened? Oh, no. Yes. And I will say, whether you wait to see it on demand or you want to go to the big screen, the new Elvis movie, very well done, very entertaining, and especially the two leads, Tom Hanks playing Colonel Parker, and I cannot think of the guy who's playing Elvis.
Austin.
Yeah. This is his first big role, and he does really, really well on it.
Cool.
It's well worth your time.
Can we put in plugs for stuff?
Yes, please.
Ms. Marvel is really good at Disney Plus.
Oh,
I'm really enjoying that. And if you don't mind some mature themes, The Boys is always exceptional on Amazon. It's Crazy Town Banana Pants, but it's very well done, and it explores a lot of the same themes that other things are exploring about our society today. So,
and there's a supernatural connection.
Exactly. And a lot of the gray areas in the world are covered on The Boys. But Ms. Marvel is pretty mainstream for people if you like superhero stuff, and it's great. It really highlights people of color in this season of Ms. Marvel. So
yeah, I agree. It is a wonderful series, and
I'll have to check it out. I'll put a shout out for thriller fans. There's a new Joe Hill based movie out called Black Phone starring Ethan Hawke, who just did a villain turn in, of course, Moon Knight. So he's back as a villain again this time, and it's about a guy that kidnaps kids and puts them in a basement, and there's a black phone that has no connection to anything, but somehow the boy is getting phone calls from somebody. So
dun.
Yeah. Scott Derrickson directs it. He directed the first Doctor Strange movie.
So what's the name of that again?
Black Phone.
Okay, good.
All right.
All right. Well, I think this will end next week or 2 weeks, because like I said, I have family, and we are celebrating the 2nd. We're doing a party on July 2nd. By any means necessary. While the station dock workers stage an illegal strike, Jakar tries to hold a non-religious ceremony, but Londo holds the plant he needs and won't replenish it. Oh, those two
rapscallions.
Yeah, those two wacky, ambassadors. Oh, that'll be fun.
Those rascals.
Yes.
Frenemies.
Yes. All right. So for now, thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. Listeners, go get vaccinated. Go get boosted. Let's be kind to each other, because that's how we're going to get through this. And we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And scene.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of not Set Listing Bruce. Boy, maybe. Yeah, take 2.